Hello, my name is Cherry Dean. I am from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I am a Seventh-Day Adventist. I was born in a Seventh-Day Adventist home. My father is a Seventh-Day Adventist. Raised by my grandmother, a Seventh-Day Adventist. She was a Seventh-Day Adventist all her life. I was born into an Adventist family, so all my life I know what has been taught. I've been around long enough to see changes. And on Sabbath afternoons, we usually have Bible study at my home. Just Bible study. And last Sabbath we were talking about, we were going through character building because we are saying, well, what inspiration actually says, that the only thing that we can take from earth to heaven is our character. And it is of the most important. It doesn't matter how many doctrines you know. It doesn't matter how much you know. If you doesn't have that heart transform that only God can give you, everything else avails nothing. So it went into a little bit about the dress code. And I remember when I was young in Union Island that if you had to go up on the rostrum, that you had to have your hat, your body had to be covered properly. Or if you go up there, they were going to ask you to come down boldly like that. Church could not have gone on if you're up there without your hat, your head cover, or if you were up there and not dressed properly, you had to come down. So as we were talking about that, Granny said, yes, because my grandmother is a Seventh-Day Adventist since she was a young girl, and she is now aged. So she had it well. And she said to me, well, before that she was saying, even when she was a little girl, and they were the elder women in the church, the older ones, she said everybody skirts were below their knees. Everybody arms were covered and elbows were covered, and they had the hat on and they were going to church. So she said as a young girl, she did not understand. As a young woman, she did not understand why were they covering their head. So she and the other young women who were there used to make fun of them. They used to say, look, the saints, them marching up one by one. Look, the saints, them going in, marching in one by one. And I said, look at that. But she continued to say that that was the standard that they had. That's what they meant. That's why she say every time she goes to church, her head is covered, because that is what they have been doing for many years. That's what the church taught at the time. But a lot has changed. We emphasize, many of our leaders emphasize that it is not necessary to change your diet. You can do it all if you want to. But if you and I are reading the same books, because we know that the Seventh-Day Adventist Church came into existence prophetically. It's just not another church. It is a church that was prophesied of, and Amos 3:7 tells us that that the Lord doesn't do anything except he reveals his secret to his servants, the prophet. It doesn't say that the Lord doesn't do some things. He says he does nothing except he revealeth his secrets to the servants, the prophets. So indeed we need the prophets. We cannot discard the prophets and their writings, especially if we know that God has sent them. So I'm saying, I came up knowing that the head had to be covered. I was rebellious, yes, and I didn't practice it. But now that I am reading, we get this knowledge through reading, and then we have the elders, the elderly, who will come and say, but this is how it is, and this is how it was. For them to see that major change, they know something is wrong. A lot has been pushing. All I'm emphasizing is that people need to take time to study the Word of God. It is not enough to have morning devotion and afternoon devotion, because I do that. And that is not going to save me. It's not enough to know the doctrines. The doctrines are important. They're very important. How else would you know what is to expect, what was the past and everything? And what, because of the doctrines, I know that there are major changes happening in the church. But now, what is important is that character. Bible study is important. Prayer is important. Morning and afternoon devotion. Constant praying is important. All these are important. Doctrines are important. Character building is important. But even though we learn all these things and we do not apply them to our lives, it means nothing. So what God is emphasizing now on his people is to get the character together. Too many of us carry around our feelings and our fingertips, so to speak. That's what inspiration say. The least person says something to us, we are ready to answer. I was reading The Desire of Ages yesterday afternoon, and it said that when Christ was seized and he was going through his trial while he was there before Caiaphas, they accused him. They say all sorts of things. They were paid to tell lies. They were not true. They misinterpret his words, but he said nothing. How many of us can be accused and still stay quiet and say nothing about it? If we can't do that, we really need to work on ourselves. But there is a time to be quiet and there is a time to speak, because in that same passage, it goes on to say that when they ask him if he is truly the Son of God, it was very important that he vindicate his Father. So there is a time that we are to be quiet and let the accusers say whatever they want. Let them assassinate your character. Because at the end of the day, if you know you haven't done anything, in that book is not going to have anything that is not pardoned for you. But the accusers, however, will have to give an account for the false accusation that they have made against you. So let us really practice what we preach. Let us really study. How many of us actually have Bible study every day of your life? 365 days a year. How many of us do that? How many of us practice that? Not Sabbath. When we go to church, many of us go hoping to get something, not to give something. You study every day. And when you study every day, you're full and energized and be able to share something with somebody. And when you go to church on Sabbath, you won't be able to say, I didn't get anything. And they didn't feed me. No, there is something to get from everything. But if you go filled, you can be able to then share something. We have too many complainers and murmurers as present day modern Israelites. Too many things that we have, that we are focusing on that doesn't necessarily need focusing. So anyways, we are back to why I really came here. So this head covering, actually, it's a head cover. It does not necessarily have to be a hat. I don't know if it's because a lot of us are not exposed to the outer world, but we really need to see that there are major changes. And what do we do when we see major changes? We can't sit back and say, oh, I'm just working for my salvation. I don't really care what people want to do with their life. Because I read in a quotation yesterday, I think it's the day before, that If you're not working to save lives, you're going to lose your life. What are we working for? Are we just working for we and our family, or are we working to see people go into God's kingdom? These are things to ponder upon. And yes, every Sabbath, we have Bible study. Everything can be traced back to the Word of God. All the writings of the spirit of prophecy. Nothing is new under the sun. If we speak it, it's there. You feel free to come to my home on Sabbath afternoon, starting at 3:30. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and God bless you.